It's probably after 6:30. Barry, thank you for
Yes.
making it
a
so
quorum.
close. Do you need agendas?
Did mine electronically.
Okay,
Trying to avoid paper.
so we call it to order. Additions, does anybody have additions or deletions to the agenda? Okay, Peter, are you ready to rock and roll? Okay, so additions and deletions to the agenda, I have several.
Wow.
Under members of the public, we always used to have / correspondence, and for some reason I've really forgotten it, so. They almost look alike, Matt and Chris, don't they?
We sometimes dress alike.
Well, I'm looking over there without my glasses thinking
Talk
that's
about it.
Matt, and I'm wondering why there's two of them. Anyways. Maybe it was a really good pizza. Members of the public, I want to add correspondence because I want to recognize something. Yeah, Tammy's here, that's good. And under old business, under transportation discussion, I want to add appoint board member because that's an action item. We usually have a board member on the transportation and our board member resigned, so we'll have to do that. I also want to have a brief conversation about equity. I think, Lori, we had started talking about fund balance policy, and I'm not sure where we ended with that, so I'm hoping that we can just at least have a brief discussion, get Mark up to speed, even if we don't make a decision.
Okay.
And then an inclusion policy, and then we talked about the 5 major measurements and a website, so I want to add those items to the old business. Not that we're going to make any decisions, but just to bring Mark up to speed, if nothing else. And then under new business, I want to add under financial, after the budget first look, the fund balance, and I believe, Laura, you made a copy of that thing you sent out with the fund balance as you think it.
It's in the packet.
Okay, perfect, thank you. And then we have, under executive session, we have the contractual issue that we were working on last meeting. So if everybody's good with that, and nobody else has anything, I will go to members of the public. And I know there's a lot of people here, but I don't think, is anybody here for just general, or? Everybody's here for something specific, right?
Well, yeah, my questions are about transportation
Okay.
specifically.
So do you mind waiting and we'll do that?
Fine.
Okay, thank you. The one correspondence thing I want to do too, and those of you from Wardsboro, you know, it's probably old hat, and I'm really sorry, but I just thought, Tammy, you made the front page of the Bucketville News.
Saw that.
In your News from Wardsboro Elementary School by Tammy Bates, principal. I think, Lauren, you're gonna have to really watch it. I think she's looking for your job, maybe. So, but I didn't print the whole thing, but it was really neat to see you on the front page and your stuff. So I just want to congratulate you on that and make people aware of that, because a lot of the people from Dover don't really do the Bucketville News. But I think it's important because that was pretty neat. So good job and congratulations.
We also had a reporter from the Brattleboro Reporter here last Monday to check out our STEAM teams. So we're anxiously waiting that article to come out.
Oh, cool.
So be on the lookout for that as well.
Okay, well, thank you, and good job. If there's nothing else from the public and no other correspondence, I'm gonna go to review and approve the minutes of the October 21st meeting. If I could get a motion from somebody, please.
So moved.
And so Dwight moved, do I have a second?
Second.
Mark's, well, we'll give Mark his first second.
Move on the job. Doing the job.
His first second. Next one will be your second.
Uh-oh.
You have a comment?
Yeah.
Go ahead. We spell your
Carrie-
name wrong.
No, Carrie's name is wrong. And replace board member, it has Mr. McDonald Carey instead of Katie McDonald.
Oh, is it Katie McDonald or McDonald Katie?
I think we'd know by now.
There you go.
Pardon?
Carrie's her first name.
Hey, Rick.
Yeah, so that's a little bit, yeah, okay.
I will look that up.
So it's in 2 spots.
Very
Okay.
nice.
So, other than that, if there's no other corrections, then I'll entertain we got rules again too to play with. All those in favor say aye. Rick, we're approving the minutes.
Okay, hi.
Aye.
Hi.
Okay. I also forgot, I was originally gonna welcome Mark to the board for the first time. You get to sit on this side of the table. You'll really have a lot of fun here because the camera's always on you, so wave to the camera guy.
Lucky me.
Yeah, you gotta wave to him.
I already asked him to keep me off camera. He
And if you
refused
can,
to.
if you can get him to talk on camera, you get extra brownie points.
Not extra brownies?
No.
Oh, shucks.
Okay, old business. So some of this stuff is we're just gonna go through and acknowledge, and some of it we're gonna spend a little time on. So the WCSU HR protocol update. So this was something that Carrie had brought up, and we were looking at, looking into people's social media when we do backgrounds. And what we pretty much got was it's not an easy thing to do. And then Bill finally got an email from VSBA,
Yeah,
and their recommendation was,
to wait, because they are working on a policy and they will bring something to you.
Yeah, so that, thank you.
No, but thanks for bringing that up, Dwight.
so we're just gonna leave that as a standing thing under old business, and when it comes through, we'll look at it. Is everybody okay with that? Like I said, I'm gonna run through this, so if you have something, make sure you yell at me. Policy status report. A residency model to review. So we asked for a residency model to review. Bill got a Stratton's, and we also have the old Dover one, I believe, at the last meeting we handed out.
So I included in your packet both the old Dover and the old Wardsboro. They're exactly the same.
They were copies, right?
And then the copy of the Stratton, very extensive one, that includes an affidavit. They've updated theirs over the past 3 years to match the interests of making sure that they're very vigilant about student residency. So I provided all of those for you all. I don't expect you to kind of go through it, but the affidavit has 41 questions. And there's like 13 different accompanying documents that go with that. So myself and the administrators can do work in between meetings if the board would like to see something that would look like the Stratton thing for River Valleys. That's kind of where we are right now.
Okay, so did anybody actually look at the Stratton policy or look at the old Dover, Wardsboro policies?
I looked at
I
the
did.
Stratton one, I didn't see the Dover one.
Do we want to have Bill whittle something down, the administrators whittle something down to make a proposal to us? Or does anybody have any comments on things they'd liked or didn't like, or they would like to see or not see? Or do we want to bring this up, at a future meeting with like kind of a model policy that's from the central office, and then we kind of take that apart?
Were there any issues with the previous policy for Dover that you had, or did it work like you intended?
Laura, it was a big thing with Laura that she pushed on. And the big change that happened was the homestead came in after we did this policy. And that made it a lot easier because you have to declare a homestead where before you didn't have to do that.
I saw
And the
that.
homestead made life a lot easier. And because it's on file at the town clerk's office, or with the listers, it just kind of really made a policy almost obsolete.
Yeah. I saw that in the Stratton one.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's kind of where we went to. Rick, can you talk about Wardsboro's at all?
No, we actually modeled ours off of what Dover did.
Okay.
When we did it, so.
And then Stratton has just been a little bit more, Stratton kind of went a little bit more strict. And
Yes.
they've added quite a few things. And all those things we discussed in Dover, but we also didn't want to set up people for failure. And sometimes, when you have so much stuff out there, nobody's ever going to do it right or be able to get it all. So we didn't want to discourage people either. So it was kind of a balance in ours. So if anybody, Dwight, do you have any thoughts on what you'd like to see in it?
The Stratton one I was amazed at the amount of questions and the detailed questions, how many nights you spend at your residence and things like this nature. And, it just seemed like they were very specific on a lot of these questions. I was wondering how necessary those were. Obviously, they must have had some serious problems in Stratton to have that detail, I would think.
Now, didn't Stratton, isn't that somewhat also based on the problems Winhall had?
So, being a non-operating district, it provides a extra level of challenge to identify residents because they have not started out in your elementary schools and then continued through time. So people can move in and out at a greater expediency. This policy was developed over time as Stratton learned more and more from their neighbors like Winhall, yes. In fact, the Stratton policy takes a lot from the Winhall policy, which is also a non-operating school district. It is pretty onerous. There are, as you point out, 41 specific questions, plus about 10 different documents that need to accompany the application. I would just speak from my history at the Dover school principal, that the current policy under Dover seemed to provide a good deal of information when determining residency, but that was 4 years ago, so I don't know what it feels like now.
Matt, could you or Tammy talk to that? Or if you want to, if you don't don't need to either.
I mean, Jen actually is the person that makes certain that anyone new that comes into the district is providing that proof of residency. So she actually would probably be the best person to speak to that.
I haven't seen the Stratton, so it's hard for me to compare. I feel what we do in Wardsboro, we ask, for either, if they own a house, that's easy, I can go to the town hall, but we have a lot of renters in town. So to get adequate information to make sure that they're actually living, and we've had a lot of people say they're living here, but kind of aren't living here 7 days a week. They come and they have this home, but they're not living here, is, I feel, our situation that we have in this town. So it's really hard to, on our policy, or how to figure that part out and how to make sure they really are residents.
So that would be something we would definitely want to make sure is in the policy.
We need something more here for Wardsboro to.
Matt, you're shaking your
Well,
head.
yeah, I was waiting. I think it's similar. It doesn't sound like maybe it's quite so bad in Dover, but we do have, some difficulty locating people, establishing where they live. It's not a huge problem, but there are some issues. But like Bill said, I feel like we've been able to collect quite a bit of information using the policy, and for the most part, it's serving us.
So,
Would you be able to identify those areas that are kind of the loopholes, or anything we could do to improve the policy?
It's the things that Jen was talking about, just where it's difficult to establish whether somebody's actually living in a home.
and I will speak to a case Dover had like 25 years ago where we had a board member who drove by a condo unit every night for a year and wrote down no cars in front and, no lights on. And we went to court with that and we lost. So, I mean, it is, too, when you have to actually enforce it, sometimes it's difficult. So I think, Bill, do you and your team have enough information to kind of hear where we have concerns and to put together something that we can review at a future meeting, maybe in a month?
Yeah, I think I can get together with Tammy and Jen and probably Lori and Matt. Kind of take a look at the Stratton policy and the current policies and see if there's some ways that we can enhance or augment, and then bring something back for the board to review.
Is everybody on the board okay with that?
Yeah. So is it?
I would,
Well, Mark.
I think the Stratton policy is probably too onerous. I mean, it doesn't leave a single question mark. I mean, it's really detailed.
It's really detailed.
Is it the policy or the affidavit that we're talking about here?
Well, the
whole
affidavit is part of the
Part
policy.
of the
It's part of the policy.
Yeah, you have to complete the affidavit to,
The affidavit, all the questions, and then the
What I'm saying is
policy.
the policy okay without the affidavit? You did not require that.
well, I think that's kind of goes back to, when you do the policy and then you have the administrative procedures or the procedure that goes with it. So I think we did want to see procedures before on some of our policies, just to make sure, when we, especially when we did the policy on which school you can attend, which building you can attend. I mean, that was one of the things, is a lot of that was administrative, but we wanted to see, what they were using for administrators. So I think, Bill, do the policy and then also any attachments that are gonna have to go with it, which are procedures or administrative processes.
That would be fine. That works for the board.
Yeah. Go ahead.
How does it work with secondary students if they apply to a school and they just tell the school that they're a resident of Wardsboro? How does it get back?
Usually the school calls.
And the school calls you
Then I,
back.
then I
Then you
have
got
to
it.
prove, yeah.
We have to
I have to
verify
track them
that
down,
they're
it's
resident.
people I don't know,
Yeah,
because
you don't
they're
even
not
know
in the
you don't know the
building.
families, you don't know the
Correct.
kids.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's the harder challenge.
that's probably gonna become even more difficult.
That's why I think it's important that her and Jen and Lori be involved with Matt and Tammy, for Bill to give us something.
Okay,
Okay?
I can
sounds
work
good.
on that.
Is everybody good?
Yep.
Rick, that's it. We'll move on. The next thing we talked about was make a list of policies to review. So at the last meeting, we decided we wanted to look into the investment policy, participation of home study students, and fitness policies. And then we passed out all the other policies that had come from both schools. And we were gonna look at them, and if anybody had anything else they wanted to put on the list, and then we would start with whatever ones, if there was any ones that anybody else had. So Rick, were you, anything else that you wanted to see?
No, I'm all set right now.
Barry?
I'm all set. My way of saying I'm completely unprepared.
That's
That's
yeah,
fine.
I think that's funny.
Yeah, we have the residency
Yeah.
one and those other three, we can
Right.
start with them, but
Yeah.
if there was something somebody thought should get bumped up ahead of those other three.
No, these are just the policies that we haven't adopted.
Right, these are not required policies, but they're policies that we like from the other schools, like maybe it was a Wardsboro or Dover policy. So we were gonna review them, and if somebody had something they wanted to see, like if there was a policy on the color of the hair of the principal in the building, and you
Right.
wanted to see that one be in there, we would do that.
Does that mean they have to have hair?
Well, I don't know, because I'm still thinking I'm gonna need these guys to change, because he's really freaking me out.
I did have a question about the fraud prevention policy.
Yeah.
Which is essentially a whistleblower policy. Is there a whistleblower policy in the district now?
No, because it's not a required policy.
I think that's something that we probably should have.
Based on the current news, is probably good.
Current news. Okay, so that'll give us 5 policies to work on over the next few months,
What are
if
they again?
everybody's good with that.
Well, I think in the
So
minutes,
it's the whistleblower, participation of home study students,
but- Yeah,
fitness, investment, and then the residency, with the residency being the first one.
okay.
So Peter, you have those 5, sir?
Yes, investment, participation in home studies. What were the other ones?
Fitness
Fitness
Got that,
and whistleblower.
got that.
and residence.
That's it. And then the residency.
Got it.
Yep, Marco?
For investment policy, you may already have guidelines by the state, by statute,
Right.
so.
Yeah, a lot of
Yeah.
stuff is by statute. These
Yeah.
aren't mandatory policies, but
Right.
these are ones that the board want to see from that the 2 schools had, the individual schools prior to combining, and just to see if they want to add, it's,
For Dover, we've been using the town's policy, so we have.
Right,
one
but we're no
sort of
longer-
piggyback. No, I understand, but
tied
if you
in.
want to look at one,
yeah, no, we
Yes,
have them,
okay,
we passed them
perfect.
out. So
Good.
we have them all, did this board want to do
Gotcha.
one? Okay, so everybody good with that? So we got those 5, and Bill, you've got your marching orders?
I do.
Okay. December 5th, we have the UVM Outstanding Teacher Banquet. And it would be really good if a couple board members could attend. It's up in Montpelier. Matt's going up for sure.
It's in Burlington.
Burlington, it's even worse, further up. Is it a good meal?
There's no meal, light orders,
Oh.
3 to 4.
So Matt's
Can't sell
buying,
it that
Matt's
way.
buying dinner on the way back.
From
Right.
4 to 6.
So, is there anybody that can attend that?
I cannot. another engagement that night.
I'll have to talk to the other half, and make sure there isn't anything.
Talk to the boss.
Talk to the boss.
I will say I'd like to go, but I just don't know whether it's gonna snow or not, and if it snows, I can't go. So, unless Dwight takes my place.
That's right.
So,
I can't, I'm already-
so I think we may have a couple, and we'll check with Laura. Maybe if you don't mind following up on that, Matt? Okay.
Sounds like fun, though.
Well, and I think there's there's another teacher from Leland and Gray getting an award
It's
too.
two from Wyndham Central.
I'd love to go, I
Yeah.
can't, I just can't.
Okay. Transportation discussion. Yay, Chris, or the other Matt, as we'll be known from here on out. We wanted to have a discussion on transportation because there was a request from a parent, I think that Matt sent out. Matt, what was your request?
The parent requested that her secondary child catch the Dover bus with
River
her,
Valley's bus.
the River Valley's bus to Dover School with her primary child,
Who goes to
Dover School, and her secondary child attends Brattleboro. So the plan would be to just hop the bus with the younger kids and then stay on the bus, which leaves immediately after it drops the elementary school kids off at Dover. The bus immediately leaves for Newbrook to meet the West River bus to hand them off to go to Brattleboro. So
Do
it's a
they
bit of,
stop or do they have to jump?
well, sometimes we ask them to tuck and roll, but no, they stop at Newbrook and switch buses, and the same reverse happens in the afternoon, although this request is only for morning because the Dover loop is not run after the Brattleboro bus gets back to Dover in the evening. So,
Yes, sir.
Do we run into a FERPA issue while we discuss these
No,
two
because we're
children?
not talking about specific students.
Oh, well, that's a lot of information. Okay,
Yeah, we don't have a name, we don't know where they get picked
Yeah.
up, and
thank you.
really could be any family, really. And there are a lot of families that,
but if you see one with some road rash in the back of their neck, they're all- okay, and then did you run this by the transportation committee that we've had?
so I sent this out to the Transportation Committee quite a while ago.
Yeah, I was just looking at that email
Yeah,
recently.
and we did get some responses. All the responses were in favor of providing this, or agreeing to this. And then, of course, we would bring that to the board for a final decision. I would say.
How many transportation committee members are there currently that responded?
I'll have to look through to see the number
Roughly.
that responded. Do you recall, Tammy? There were at least 1, 2, 3, maybe 6 responses out of maybe 9.
Okay, and they were all positive?
And they were all in favor. There was one, Ms. McDonald Katie suggested that it would be good if we do it, that we make sure we communicate it clearly to all the families on that route so that everybody would have access to the option. So I checked in to see if that would overwhelm the bus, and I don't believe it would. So if all the students who are secondary in Dover took the option, the bus would still not be full in the morning.
Did you have any people that were not in favor of it?
It's been so long, Rich, I'd want to read back through.
Okay.
I have it.
And see.
Go- Was there
I have
somebody?
it. The only negative was, will there be room for the primary students? That was literally the
Yeah.
only question that was like, could this be a possible negative? And I had mentioned, as long as this student was not disruptive or inappropriate with the younger students, it seemed logical. If the bus is at the stop and they're going to the place,
Right.
it's not an extra stop, it's one more student. So those were the only possible oppositions to it was, is this child, if the child's disruptive or if there aren't enough seats.
Yeah.
Otherwise, everybody was
Yeah.
like, we don't see an issue or a reason why that doesn't make sense.
Okay, so really there wasn't opposition, it was kind of more like just making sure that it was gonna work and that
It was appropriate.
could be appropriate, okay. And any student, even an elementary student, if they're disruptive or a problem, will be subject to the policies or procedures for disruptive or, bus discipline, so.
Yes.
Right,
Okay.
and presently, my understanding is we don't have a bus discipline policy yet, but that it's one that you've talked about working on.
But if a child's disruptive, you folks are gonna deal with it.
Right, we're going under the procedures of the Dover School Board, until the River Valleys Board establishes new policy in that area.
Okay, Tammy?
I just wanted to say that model is very similar to the model that we're using in the afternoons here in our building. The high school students are already on the bus, and our elementary students get on the bus and join them for the rest of the ride home.
That was exactly my quote, actually.
So, I guess Wardsboro, you never had a transportation group in the past.
No, and the transportation policies were done by the transportation company, not
Right.
by the school itself, so it was not.
Because you didn't have your own.
Exactly, because we didn't own the transportation.
So, just so you folks know, when Dover past procedure had been, we would kind of we asked the transportation committee to handle this, to be responsible for this, and we tried to involve the road commissioners and the bus drivers and the administrators and, get it, and a couple parents, try to get a good cross-section. So they would, if they made a recommendation, a lot of times we would approve it. We may ask a few questions, but, we kind of gave it to them to deal with. And we did have board member representation at the time this question went out from our transportation person. So hearing that, does anybody on the board have an issue if we go with the recommendation of the transportation committee?
None whatsoever.
Question?
Yep.
Couple questions. How many, well, I understand that there's, that Wardsboro already does this way. We have the older kids mixing with the younger kids, which kind of was one of my questions, would there be a problem having such older kids with little kids and the different age groups? But I know we don't have control of Wardsboro, but I don't know if you foresee anything along those lines.
I don't foresee it being a problem, I think
Yeah.
it's something that we could handle.
All right. And then, how would they be getting, this is the school, the bus is going to Brattleboro, how are they, with these people going, how are they getting transportation now without you doing it this way? Is there another bus that goes?
Yeah, so
This is a different way of getting there essentially?
This particular family is taking the mover
Okay.
down through Wilmington, and it runs it's a longer run for them in the morning.
That's it, that's all I know.
Mark, you got any? No. Good. Okay, so if nobody has any problem, I don't know if it requires a vote, but I think we can just bless.
Do we have to set a policy that this is okay for anyone to do this, or just?
No, I think we just agree, well, how about this? Why don't we make a motion to go with the recommendation of the transportation committee?
Yeah.
You wanna do that,
I
Dwight?
think so.
Wanna get your second in?
Second.
Okay, his second. Motion's been made and second to go with the recommendation of transportation policy. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Of the policy of the committee?
Of the recommendation of the committee, I'm sorry, not the policy. Is there any nays? Okay, Matt, go forth and bless them.
I'll notify the family.
Okay. Second part of this discussion is Carrie had been the transportation committee member of the,
We're just in time.
yeah, that's right, Laura's just in time to get that. You can be your first motion. He's made 2 seconds.
I'd like to live.
So we need to appoint a board member to the transportation committee. So is there anybody who would like to volunteer?
I do it.
You'd like to do that? Is there anybody else who would like to do that? No, I'll jump in once, Mark.
Jump back to it, so.
Okay, so will somebody make a motion to appoint Mark to the transportation committee as the board representative?
So moved.
Second. Okay, Barry, you moved it?
Yes.
Okay, and Laura seconded it. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And anybody but Mark who's opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Congratulations.
Thank you, I think.
Did you have
Well, thank
anything
you.
else on transportation that you wanted to discuss?
Really, that was just part of it, because I had sent out an email to the transportation committee, because I am part of the transportation committee, but I was feeling a little lost because I was like, so when I was on the transportation committee before, when we were sort of the little subgroup and we were looking for equity and,
Savings and-
yeah, we were meeting pretty regularly, bless you. And we haven't met at all, like besides the email that Matt sent out, there hasn't really been any discussion. And as a parent who is considering our options for high school, I have questions about transportation and I'm curious what's happening moving forward, because we had really good questions in that little group about sort of how the transportation is going from Dover and how the transportation is going from Wardsboro, and I was left feeling like, I feel like we could do this better as far as high school. So I'm just curious what the expectation is from you guys of this committee. Are we meeting, and will it take effect for next year?
So here is why the other Matt is here today.
Excellent.
So we've hired, since that transportation committee was first put together, we've hired a facilities operations person at Wyndham Central, which is Chris. And has everybody met Chris? If not, you've been with us since July sometime.
Yep, in July.
And we told him he's got a lot to do in a short period of time like that, and he's really working hard trying to do that. One of Carrie's, as the board representative from the transportation committee, was that it was really difficult for the transportation committee to be able to do that deep dive. And it was also really tough on Lori last year because she's putting together new budgets and old budgets. So we were hoping this year that there could be more time spent on that transportation. So when we get to the budget, that's why we asked that Chris be here, and that hopefully Chris can help the administrators and the committee look into it deeper, and then Lori will have a little bit more time, not a lot. So we can't use a lot of it, but to see if there's some efficiencies. I know in the past Dover's tried to work with West River and they're like maxed out too.
Sure.
So there's a lot of moving parts to it.
Yeah.
But that's why Chris is there and that's why he works so closely with Lori and Bill and the administrators. So if you can hold that till we get the budget time a little bit, and then
Yep.
we can task them with how they're gonna do that and
Perfect.
go from there. It'd be good. Is everybody good with that? Okay, so the other things are just kind of, I just wanted to talk about really quickly. These were the additions, and just kind of really to bring Mark up to speed. One of the topics that we've had on for a little while is the equity issue, and that was something that Laura brought up, and we want to keep it on the agenda. And what we want to do is just, we're going to come up with our own definition of equity to make sure that we're happy. There is an equity statement or a definition from the state, I believe, and we want to just make sure it fits for the river valleys. So I think maybe Bill, in a month or so, can you kind of give us like a timeline on discussing that and work with us a little bit? We spend a few minutes at the a few board meetings kind of going forward with that, and then we'll get a definition that is kind of unique to us, or maybe we keep the definition that the state has. And so that's something I think that we were planning on working on in the future. A River Valley fund balance policy. I think, Laura, you've got one that you're going to talk to us about in a little bit. You want to do that at budget?
Sure.
Okay. And then, Matt, you had an inclusion policy and another policy that was unique to IB.
Right.
And I forgot, where did we stand with those? Have we dealt with them yet?
We approved those,
So we're all set.
I think we're all set on those.
Okay. And then there's two other things that I just thought we should talk about quickly. We had these 5 major measurements back when we were putting this together and charging Bill to design this new system. Number 1 was all students demonstrate proficiency and growth, a budget that voters support and approve, justifiable to citizens and in line with previous budgets supported by communities. Families are involved, board provides update and easily accessible information, and personalized learning plan for every student. So I think, Bill, too, if we could maybe have you and your team give us some timelines on this and, what we're gonna discuss, kind of like when we did our calendar a couple years ago. Let's generate a calendar where we're going with this stuff. So this is something that we've kind of been talking about, and it's kind of been in the background. And then the last thing is the website design and development request. And you know, you put a lot of time and effort into that, and we kind of tabled it because of the expense, but I think it's a good time to maybe look at this while we're doing budget, if we want to budget for it next year. And we also reserved some time with Anita, and no, not Anita. Yes, Anita, to do some work with us on that also. So let's make sure we pick that up again at some point in the near future when we discuss budgets. And I just want to touch base on those, and that was it. Unless anybody wants to bring anything up about them. Okay. I'm gonna move into new business. We had a principal's report. Does anybody have any questions of the principals from the report? Chris, I got a present for you too.
All right.
Okay, if there's nothing on the principal's report, we had the superintendent's cabinet report for November 2019. Kind of almost 3.5 pages. Any questions on that? Matter Tammy, any updates on anything not on the principal's report?
And even as far as school events, I think mostly everything that I would report on tonight is included in the principal's report. So I don't really have anything in addition to that.
Matt?
Just to put the Dover Community Feast on your calendars for December 12th. Thursday.
There will be food at that one.
There will be food.
Chris, you gotta go to that if you like food, if you like
All
to
right.
eat. Okay, Bill, you and your group, anything for your cabinet report that isn't in?
No.
Oh, Lori. The financial management questionnaire. So I have a note that we do this in November.
January usually.
Oh, so you want me to do it in January? You remind us, we'll do it in January.
All right. Yeah, either December or January, but.
School events were covered in the principal's report. Unless anybody has any questions or anything else. If not, I'm gonna turn the meeting over to Lori to give us our first look at the budget. So remember, folks, this is just a first look draft. We have no clue what this means to the tax rate. We could have a budget that increases 100%, doubles, and our tax rate could still go down. We could cut $500,000 out of our budget, and our tax rate can still go up and double. So remember, ever since Act 60 and 68, the tax rate has a little bit to do with the budget, but there's a whole bunch of other factors that play into that. So let's not get nervous about tax rates yet, and let's just get a broad overview of the budget from Lori.
Okay. So you
Do
have
you have
a,
extras for these too?
I think I gave everybody, I think everybody has one. So you all have a packet for the budget. It's 15 pages. It has a lot of different documents in it. I'm just gonna go through it really quickly as an overview, and then we'll come back and start working our way through it. I didn't number the pages, so if you want to do that, I would start, this is page 1. I forgot to number them before it went to print. Okay, so the first couple of pages are, if you remember, I handed out a while back and spoke about the budget development and execution document and the guiding principles used for budget development. So that's what these first 2 pages are, and they're in response to how was this budget built within these guidelines. So I'll let you can read this at, your leisure. And then we get to the meat of the budget, and we are looking at the River Valley School District Summer year-over-year budget comparison. So this is in a similar format as to what you had last year. And you can see that the increase is $460,000, 8.61%. And so I'm gonna break those down and then we can actually see where that appears in the budget as we go through it. So the total salary increases, normally you would see increases here, not a slight decrease, right? Because a salary increase is alone, and then there were some staffing changes. But what this represents is a shift also. We had budgeted for the academic support teacher in salary, and now it's in changes in assessments and purchase services. So there's an offset there, okay? The next is health benefit increases. We know that, that there is a 12.9% rate increase. So that is figured in there. There also was some changes in plans that actually make up the majority of that, single going to a family. That is a $15,000 to $20,000 swing. So. Changes in assessments and purchase services. This is, a big portion of your budget, and this represents changes in the superintendent's budget. That hasn't been approved yet, so these are the estimated budget numbers here. Special education, ECSE, which is early childhood special education, so that's the pre-K portion of it. The agency fund, the purchase services that you purchase from the agency fund. And then the academic support teacher is also in that figure. Secondary tuition increases. These are just the yearly projections that we do as Matt and Tammy and Jen and Lori all contribute to a document that we have, and we'll go through that later. Building operations, we have a fairly large increase there. Just planning for the future, taking care of the buildings, going back to our guiding principles, a safe and secure place for the children, the students. And then we did put in a fund transfer to capital funds line item, which some of you may have had in the past and some may not. But this is for the larger capital projects, the classroom project, the roof project at Dover. So just a line item there of $50,000 to start moving money into a capital reserve for those larger projects. So that's what the $460,000 is made up of. And then on the next page, I've broken down the budget, and I'm not sure how much time we have to go through every line item now, but okay.
So why don't we do, Lori, if it's okay with everybody, since this is the first look, why don't you do the broad strokes?
Okay.
We'll give everybody a chance to take it home, and then the next meeting, we'll get into the ticky-weed kind of, the
Sounds
specifics.
good. Okay.
But if there's like a one line item that doubled or something, and it's an easy explanation, that may help.
Sure. So I've broken down the budget so that it's easy to kind of go through and look through in sections. So the first section is the pre-K. These are the total pre-K costs, and you can see that this pre-K number is up quite a bit, and I'll speak a little bit to that. Is to get an accurate picture of the pre-K, we moved the pre-K K teacher from Wardsboro. We split her salary and benefits, so we had a more accurate view of pre-K. Before, she was totally in the direct instruction for K through 6, or yeah, K through 6. So that's part of the increase there. Okay, and then the next page is your direct instruction. So this is elementary direct instruction. And, not a huge swing here. A lot of things with healthcare. Also the AST that I was talking about, that is also in this line item on line 38.
Just as a point, the 3.6% increase you show overall is less than the agreed upon increase in salary, so I mean that's...
Right. So then the next page is, now we're getting into the specials. So this is the art, world language, music band, music education, PE, special education. That is the assessment that comes through from the SU. Again, that number is subject to change based on being approved at the WCSU board level. The co-curricular, and also the 21C, which is in line 81. So there's two different programs going on, and it was actually, we spent a lot of time in discussion about equity and how to maybe do these programs differently or expand them without actually expanding the cost of them. So these are actually in flux right now, and we're working on that plan. So. Then the next page continues with some of the other support systems, the guidance, the school nurse, instructional support. So this, in line 98, this is the admin-directed PD, professional development. Then we get down into school focus, and there, you're going to see a lot of,
Can you go back?
yeah,
I'm sorry. Instructional staff training out, we put in 30 for STEAM, but I see it's down to 10. Is
nope,
that?
so that's what I'm just about to talk about.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That's okay. So, we took a look at, we had $20,000 in for STEAM last year. And you can see that on line 105 in column E. So there's that $20,000. So what we did is, as a group, we discussed this, and you know, Tammy, we discussed on how could we break that up so that it's, I don't know, more relevant, I guess, to what they're spending the money on. So some of it is teachers going for professional development, some of it might be supplies, some of it might be equipment, i.e. maybe a 3D printer or a robot. We talked a lot about robots, like. So we just broke that $20,000. We didn't lose it. It's just broken up within those line items.
Could it be a subcategory of that? In other words, so that way we have a better understanding of exactly what we're spending on STEAM, rather than separate line items?
So over in the notes, you can see basically what goes to STEAM and what goes to IB.
Oh, I got you.
Okay?
Thank you.
But I don't see the robot.
Yeah, where's the robot?
Well, you see the 3D printer, so it's a toss-up between the two.
Does the board get to decide that one?
Board decides everything.
Oh, yeah, we do. The board wants a robot.
The board wants a robot.
No,
Okay.
thank you. Sorry for that diversion.
Library media, and then the principal's office, and then the operations. Operations is where, there's some backup documents to this line, 147. I have a ruler. Here it is. 147. So that was one of the big swings that we talked about, and that's, for basic maintenance and that type of thing. So we'll talk about that in a couple seconds when we get to the backup document that Chris provided for us. Okay, moving on, we have care and upkeep of the grounds. So most of these costs here are Dover costs that have come over. A lot of the care and upkeep of the grounds in Wardsboro is done through the service that they buy. Transportation, this is for primary students' transportation. Okay. And then the food operations. So this is the money on 182, I'll point out, this is the transfer from the food fund that covers the deficit the food program typically runs. So overall, your elementary K through 6 is up 6.73% based on all of those different items. And the next page is secondary, and this is where, most of this is tuition, students. We do have the special ed SU assessment broken down by primary and secondary, so you'll see that again here. The vocational center costs, and these are all placeholders at this point because we don't have the 6-semester average that the state sends us and tells us basically what it's going to cost for the Career Center. So those haven't come in yet. So that's the total secondary. Then the next page is location-wide. So these are the Board of Ed here, and this is also where the SU assessment, the Supervisory Union assessment, lives also on line 205. And treasurer, clerk, audit, legal services, the admin tech. Here we're working on, and you know, maybe Matt and Tammy want to speak to this about just the overall purchase services that River Valley's purchases from Wyndham Central's agency fund, and how can we do things differently, and you know, we've started into those conversations.
So this is the agency fund.
The agency fund is all throughout the whole budget.
Okay.
Yeah, this is only the admin tech, so this is basically what River Valley's is paying for some technical services for both schools, and also overall about 20% of the director of technology.
And that's line 205?
216.
216, yeah. And then on 220, that's that fund transfer that I put in there for $50,000. And the 224 is the total budget. That is that 460, 408. So the next page refers back to the building ops, the different items that were needed for general maintenance. And also, I think I did put into that number, which, you know, this is all up, you know, obviously up for discussion, but the ERV replacement, I did put this in the current budget rather than the capital, doing something with capital funds, because I think it's a fairly immediate need, but Chris can speak to that more, I guess. If you wanna talk about any of this on here.
Let's see, name.
Yes, go ahead. I'll you take it from here.
Sure, so some of them you'll see, parentheses, they have CNA on there, so that's from our capital needs assessments. This is what was the engineers determined for this fiscal year should be budgeted for. So I've just included these costs in here. Some of them I think are up for discussion. I think some of them might not be as prevalent as some of the other capital planning items we have, but again, that's open for discussion.
So I did not include any of those because the other needs seem to be, you know, like the ERV replacement, that needs to be done fairly soon.
Good. Hang on a second.
Yes. I'm not quite following
Okay.
what this sheet is telling us.
Sure. Okay, so this sheet here, if you see, I don't have a column thing on here, but it says budget submission for first draft.
Yeah. Oh, I see. Got it.
So those totals there
Are in.
are in the budget.
Great. Thank you.
The next page is the tuition report. So this just breaks down basically the students. So I will tell you that this, in the green for fiscal year 21, is about 3 students heavy. And what I mean by that is that they're just phantom students. And all of the 6th graders that were going into 7th grade are all budgeted at the higher 17,600 rate instead of the public, and because Leland and Gray's public is very close to Burton's rate anyway. So the only savings would be if they went to Brattleboro or Twin Valley. So I budgeted them at the higher rate.
Now, when you say phantom students, is that through the state or is that just you?
No, that's just putting in
Okay.
the extra students.
Right.
To cover some move-ins.
Right.
Mhm.
Okay.
Do you have all the tuition
No, they don't come out. till
No, the
January.
announced tuitions
Okay,
don't come
yeah.
out for a bit, yeah.
Okay.
And then, moving on, this is our big overview here. The fund balance projections. Marco and I were finally able to talk on the phone. We've been planning to meet in person for like 2 weeks, 3 weeks?
2 months?
Yeah. We were finally able to talk in person, to talk through the fiscal year 18 audit report. So that's reflected in here. So these are the different funds that, that River Valleys has coming out. So to break it down, let's see, let's go all the way to the bottom. And there's, which, oh, hey Matt, I must have printed it before I put those things in there. So in the bottom there's, I don't have Dover and Wardsboro there, but you can see in fiscal year ending 18, which is the beginning of 19, right? There was 1.2 million, almost 1.3. And so fiscal year 19 ending fund balance, which is the beginning of fiscal year 20, the year we're in, 600 and almost 700,000.
No. You have that again.
Okay. So in fiscal year 18, and these are audited balances, so
Yeah.
those were from the audit report. There was, between the two entities, $1.3 million. Okay, then how you figure fund balances is you take the starting fund balance, which is that 1.2, and you add revenues, subtract expenses, and that's your ending fund balance, which is the 700,000.
698.
698.
Okay.
But that's
Around-
not
that's-
audited, so that could.
That
be
number
different.
is not audited, and
And we won't
they
know
are,
for
well,
3
they,
years.
they've,
Maybe
no,
4. No, they started
They've
already.
started.
Yeah, well, he started last.
No, he started last year's like a month, you know.
Okay.
He did, so, yeah.
So what in Dover, we've been using Sullivan,
And Powers.
and it was unreal because Marco just barely, within the last, got the FY18, which has been closed for over a year
Yeah.
and a half, and it's just been a killer. So there's one thing that's gonna be nice, is that we'll all be using the same auditor, and there'll be one number, and hopefully it'll get done quicker.
Yeah, after 19, which is being audited
Done now,
now.
that- then-
Right, then it goes to RHR Smith, who,
So we'll,
which
so
is, they're
if
cheaper too.
all things being equal, you're projecting around $750,000.
Right, so I wanna caution though, because 200,000 of
Right.
it is already committed for fiscal year 20
That we're in.
that you bought down the tax rate with.
Right, but we don't know if we're gonna use it or not, because again, it could be a positive or a negative. So we actually aren't in as bad shape as other districts that have negative numbers. I mean, we should have around $500,000 to play with.
Right.
Okay. Has everybody got that?
There it is.
What are the,
All of it or just bits and pieces?
just
Because
what
I've
are the
got bits and
expenses?
pieces of it.
Right, what are the expenses for fiscal year 19?
What's your
The
budget?
3
The
million?
5.5 million, you mean?
Yeah,
That's all your operating budget.
that's your operating budget.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
And it could be, you can, if you go up, you can see, in the capital improvement fund outlook,
Right.
you know, Wardsboro did spend some money out of their capital fund, $21,000. So it's all of those expenses for all the different funds.
Gotcha.
And the same thing with the revenues.
Now, out of this, $500,000 that we're looking at though, is some of that, does this include committed things or things that
Yes.
cannot be used for anything but their specific purpose?
Right, so that's a question, right, that I still haven't
Yes.
really found the answer to from a legal standpoint. So when fiscal year 19 ended, right, these are the balances in the different funds. And yes, the capital fund is a committed fund. The special revenue is a committed fund. The student activity, that hasn't, those are gonna come in later. The trust fund, the Clyde Jones Memorial is a committed fund, right? You can't, it's restricted, actually, not committed. So those are funds that you can't touch, but when it all comes into a new entity,
that's the legal question that I haven't been able to actually get a solid answer. I've had two different answers by two different lawyers.
But isn't some of that also, though, that can be the board's decision too, because even if they say it doesn't matter, but we want to keep the Clyde Jones Fund for what it was originally intended for, the board can decide that.
Well, a trust fund is different and applies, there are different rules that apply to a trust fund, and I would say that one's locked up.
Okay.
Okay, potentially the capital improvements fund could potentially move around.
Right.
You could reallocate that
Right, the
to
board
special
can-
revenue or to the general fund or whatever. And the special revenue fund is typically, usually those are pretty restricted too. That's, I think, was an enrichment. I'm trying to think what, I don't have that, I have that in my bag, but the document.
That's fine, we can, because one of the things that we had in my notes is that we were gonna discuss which funds this year we want to create. You know, like a building fund, do we want an equipment replacement fund? A building equipment fund, like to replace computers or, so I think that's something that we're gonna look from you to help make recommendations and to allocate the resources so that we're not starting from scratch.
Okay. Yeah, and again, these are unaudited, so we're gonna stay on the auditors too, and we'll get it, right? Sooner than later here. Then the last page is just a CLA and tax rate comparison, and I thought this was important because Wardsboro was reappraised last year. You all remember that? And your CLA took a nosedive, which dramatically increased your tax rate. I think we were projecting $1.43 with the CLA that was in place at the time, and these are right, I don't have the resource here, I'll put that on there, but these are off the state's tax, so you're at $1.62. So you can see your CLA went from 109.93% to 97.39. So this is exactly how, what Rich just said a little bit ago, that, you know, you can have a $460,000 increase in your budget, and once you get into the CLA and the equalized pupils, it can change it dramatically. So this changed pretty dramatically for Wardsboro. It means the houses are selling good in Wardsboro. That's what it is.
For
The property
listers-
values.
The listers weren't keeping up with the transfers.
Took out the pens.
Yeah.
So,
Mark has a question.
There was a dramatic drop in the equalized pupils for 18, 19, I believe. Are you anticipating anything like that for 19, 20?
I'm not projecting, to be honest. It's, we had a lot of problems with the SLDS system last year, and it caused it to go way out into the future. I think we didn't get our equalized pupils till what, January, late January. So I expect it's going to go much better this year, and we'll have better numbers in December. So, I mean, it's really due by law by December 15th. And, you know, I can throw together projections, but all that has to happen is one little calculation's off and you're down 3 students, which means your tax rate's up, you know. So I'd rather wait for the solid number to come out, to be honest.
Just historically, Dover used to put off our vote on the budget till after legislature got out of office, out of legislature, out of session, so that we could play with real numbers. You know, because we're all projecting numbers, and you go to town meeting and you can look like a real, you know, you could say, hey, we're projecting the tax rate to be $1.50 and it comes in at $2 and you're a goat.
Yeah. So if anybody knows if Dover's going to be reappraised this year, that
No,
would be good.
Dover does a rolling reappraisal.
Okay. Because we didn't know that at the time of the building the budget, that Wardsboro was going to be reappraised.
But again,
It
too, though,
doesn't-
even if, you know, if you're at 50% and they reappraise and go at 100%, even though your taxes, again, the tax rate this is a frustration of mine with Act 60 and Act 68. The tax rate is only one part of the equation. It's also the value. And if this town says your house is valued at 50 and your tax rate's $1 and then they value your house at 100, but your tax rate drops to 50, you're still paying the same exact amount of tax. It's just how you got there. And, you know, that's the one problem is, you know, even with the CLAs, it's kind of always balanced out a little bit. You know, it's tough when you go from a big drop, you know, or you go up high. But then if you go up and if you're at 110%, then really they've overappraised your houses at 10%. So if you're at 100,000, you should have been appraised at 90. And it's, you know, one of the confusing parts of the whole formula.
Is it a requirement to reappraise when CLA reaches a certain?
No, there's different requirements because some people do it every year. Some towns
But it
do.
was
Some
under-
towns don't have any sales, you
How
know.
was it 110% or something required?
Well, it used to be if you were like lower than 60% or
Oh, okay.
90.
Yeah.
There's been a whole bunch of different rules, and that's been one of the frustrations with these two because you've got different listers in different areas doing appraisals. Some towns you have 500 sales a year, some towns you have 5. And you know, in those smaller sale markets, you know, somebody buys something crazy just because they fell in love with the pond. I mean, it could affect everybody.
And then just lastly, this is a document that I gave you with the thing, and it's frequently used terms around budgeting and tax rates, and I thought it was really good. It's really spells out all the different things that go into the tax rate, so. Cheat sheet, yes. Do you have any questions?
Well, yes, anybody from the board, any,
I mean,
let's not get into specific like
Yes, okay.
line items because I think let everybody get a chance to digest it. Now, do we get you at our next meeting or not?
I think so. I think, yes.
I'll be at West River and Lori will be here.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's right. I was trying to remember
We,
which.
we coordinate.
Okay. How about
can I
anybody-
just
Yeah.
say, like, in general, my questions at the next meeting, and I will read if it's helpful, are around the SU.
The SU
Yeah, I mean, the
assessments.
big, yeah, and that may be a simple answer.
No, it's good.
Mhm.
Do you have
Well,
any-
actually, the SU assessments are just the number they're gonna insert. It's the SU board that will decide what the SU assessments are.
So it's all kind of lumped together, so,
So let me just point out one thing, because when you review this, it might help.
Yeah.
Anytime that you see, you just turn to one, and let's see, actually, you can't turn to just one. Let me find one. The account code, which means
yes.
agency fund or.
1201?
Yes, so 1201 is a 5593. So anytime you see the account code 5593, it means it's an assessment. Anytime you see the account code 5591, it means it's a purchase service from the agency fund.
Agency.
Yeah, so that'll help you to see it throughout
Yeah.
the whole budget.
Thank you. That's great.
So, before we get to Chris on something, November 13th? 18th? No, November 13th, the WCSU will be getting the first look at, Lori will be doing this dog and pony show with the SU. And myself, Rick, and Barry are the 3 members who get to go vote and ask questions. Are you guys gonna be able to make that meeting? Because if not, I'd like to see if we got other board members who can make it. Just so we have good representation there.
I should be able to make it. Excuse me, I should be able to make that.
Okay,
I should be able to.
okay. So, Laura, a lot of that we'll be able to bring some stuff back to the next meeting after that because they'll give us a budget. But at the last WCSU meeting, Bill and Lori projected a 3.4% increase to the superintendent's budget. Obviously, the agency fund budget is really kind of something we don't vote on until after all the budgets are approved because those numbers vary, but the agency fund all comes from the administrators. You know, they tell Wyndham Central what they need and then they just bill it out. And then special ed has our new funding formula we'll be using for the first time. So that'll be kind of interesting to see, but we definitely expect an increase in special ed because, I mean,
Yeah.
there's less money coming in and we're pooling everything.
May I again?
Oh, yeah.
So just, I'm not sure, so here's what I would like, is just to be able to easily explain to a member of the public. So that's a big target, that increase. So just to be able to, like have it kind of, oh, it's this and this and this, or at least, and I will look through here and pull it.
Are you talking
but-
page 3?
Yeah,
Changes
yes, when
in
we're looking,
assessments and
when we're
purchase
looking at,
services.
yeah, when we're looking at the variances.
The 174.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a big, it sticks out, right? So, and it's kind of glumped together, so it's easier, I would just like to be able to say,
So underneath maybe
These-
subcategory of superintendents and agency fund and.
But
for me, and I don't know what the chair is gonna want, but for me, I just would like to have like the big buckets that are changing or shifting, just an understanding, and maybe that's an offline, it's not an offline conversation.
But this is really, this is not anything that we use for anything. This is not what
This
we're
is
gonna
just
vote
us.
on. This was just something Lori's giving you to kind of see the big buckets. Right? I mean, we don't vote on this, we don't hand this out to
Oh,
anybody.
the summary,
Yeah, this page,
3.
3.
yeah, page 3 summary. I
You
mean,
want a narrative attached to that. So that you
Well,
can,
so, we do the this looks like something like a Charlotte bond, which I imagine that would be probably built out a little bit more, maybe not, I don't know.
that's the 500 over under.
that's my over-under.
Okay, yeah, I
Charlotte
was like,
Bond
okay,
capital.
that's some.
So like, for
technical.
example, could I take a stab at this and just see if this is your thinking?
Yes.
So under changes in assessments and purchase services.
Yes.
Okay. The 174.
Yeah,
Okay. So 77 is a cost shift from salary, line 1, to there.
yeah,
And
Okay? So that gets you down to 97,000.
yeah,
And then you have 97,000, 77 of that 97 is special ed.
yeah,
That gets you down to 20.
yeah,
Out of that 20 is a projected $15,000 increase in all purchases for the agency fund
yeah,
and 5,000 for the superintendent's budget.
yeah. So I would like us as a board to have that, and I'm gonna use a term that I use all the time
Yeah.
in the legislature. I would like us to be able to have that description for dummies.
Well, we're gonna have it because that
Do you know
was
what I-
when they present the Wyndham Central budget, that's how we get it presented. We
Yeah.
vote 4 separate budgets for Wyndham Central.
Okay.
And we will vote a superintendent's budget, which will show a $5,000 increase. We will vote a special education budget, which will show a $77,000 increase. We will vote a AST budget, which will show a $77,000
see.
increase. And we will review an agency fund budget, which will show a $15,000 increase, but we don't vote on that until sometime in March or April.
And all of those numbers will be bigger because you're just talking about these this one school district.
Right. We're
You're
gonna,
talking about your
You're not gonna see the
16.7%
$77,000, you're gonna
of
see
the total.
$770,000.
right. So the superintendent's budget's going up more
And
than
that's- it's buried.
$5,000. It's going up
31.1.
31.1, but
Yeah.
of
You
that
guys paid
31.1,
16.8.
Exactly.
Yeah,
right. So we'll see it in 4 budgets. She just she lumped them all into one. So we'll have that broken down at the Wyndham Central meeting.
yeah.
But a little narrative to help explain.
So if this were to survive as it is right now, we were to go to town meeting because we all felt like this is imperative, what we have here, it's a large increase, which I'm happy to go and, say we have to have this.
Yeah.
But it's large enough where we're really gonna have to have 4
Explanation.
dummies.
More like, what are we
okay?
gonna get for
Ed
this?
dummy, yeah.
Well,
What extra are you bringing us?
but don't forget too, again, folks, we may say, hey, guys, look, it looks like a huge increase, but guess what? With all the income coming in and all the tuition students, because
Maybe
we have
fine,
these
no, I mean,
robust,
maybe fine.
Could be fun.
robust programs, we're only asking for an extra $10,000 to fund this whole thing. So, again, don't get hung up on these numbers yet.
We have a good sense of what's happening. Folks that don't, sometimes they don't take a lot of time to understand what's happening. That's why I'm
Yeah, but we
saying.
need you guys to talk
So
through this
it's-
stuff
right.
so we can provide you with the detail you want.
Okay, stupid question. What does AST stand for?
academic support teacher.
Which
So,
is a
Yeah.
special,
Look on
No,
page
it's not special
1,
ed.
the 3rd bullet down, under your guiding principles for budget development, in blue, and then follow it in black.
So I think it'd be good if everybody, seriously, I always joke about we're school boards and we need homework, but read the definitions, read that first few things that she wrote up, and then just read through the numbers, make marks, but I think next time, especially on the superintendent side, the WCSU side, we'll have a better packet, and we do what we usually get at Wyndham Central, which we'll be able to bring forward is, here's some notes, they always submit, here's why we're seeing this $31,000 increase, and here's why we're seeing a $77,000 increase. So we'll have all that for the
We
next
have a
meeting.
$706 offset?
Yeah,
Okay.
we like offsets.
Sorry,
Do you want me
Lori.
to
I couldn't help it.
Do you want me to re-explain that though?
That's an important one.
It is,
Go ahead, because
because you don't see the offset.
I don't see a $706 offset on a $700,000 increase.
So typically, you would see an increase just from salary increases alone, right? You wouldn't ever see a decrease from salary to salary unless you negotiated a 0% increase,
Or negative
Or
increase.
reduced FTEs.
right?
Right.
So you would always see an increase there. And so I would expect that between the salary and the benefits, we could find that 77,000 just in the fact that there were some staffing changes, which caused an increase, but it's not reflected in, because it shows that 706.
I just don't want to be on stage saying, well, we saved you
Oh.
$706,
Okay.
but it cost you $77,000.
I hear you,
Yeah, I mean, that's really not a.
Yeah.
That's the way it works.
Yeah.
That's
I got
how
a nickel for
government
you.
That
works,
works,
Rick.
man. Point out the positive.
Okay, so if everybody's okay with the budget, again, not that you would vote for this budget, but that we're gonna let Lori go while she's still intact. And we'll see you at the next meeting.
There's no reason for her not.
I wanted to pick on Chris for a minute. So one of the things, Chris, that we were hoping your position would do for specific for River Valleys was transportation. And you heard a little bit from our a member of the transportation committee and our former board representative, really felt that there could be some savings and some, or some, not even just savings, but some, increased services or whatever. And so what can we do between now and when we have to approve a budget in December? What can you help us with, or how can you help us move that forward, number one? And I'm gonna give you a two-part question, almost like an interview. And then the second part is, Dwight worked really hard and used some of his stuff from, his real career, his real job, and, looking at the studies that we did of the buildings. And he actually had proposed, and I don't know if you've seen a copy of it, you had a 10-year or 15-year?
I think it's 10-year.
10-year.
Based on the report. Did you have a chance to see the report from the engineer?
Yes.
Okay, great.
So there was the one for both buildings, and they made a recommendation on what, so helping us to implement that, I know Lori put 50,000 in for, to move into a reserve for building maintenance, and then a bunch of building maintenance items. So, are there things like, one of the things I know, we asked Lori and Matt to give us some ideas on things that were needed. And I remember Lori talked about the ERV is on the fritz, and it's located in that attic, which poses a huge challenge.
Right.
And parking lot, and then Dover has the roof, and, our furnaces are 20 years old, and, we all have the electric, because we've got the solar now, and we have some huge credits, and do heat pumps make sense? So how are you gonna help us with all that? And you got 10 seconds.
Wait till the camera comes around.
Yeah, it's really just looking at seeing what those options are, seeing what the costs are associated with, looking at the actual needs versus where they were on the capital needs assessment that was done. Just for example, the roof for Dover was on that capital needs assessment, but it was way out there. I mean, maybe 5 to 8 years from now, and just based on when the roof was installed and what that useful life of that looks, I don't think it's gonna make it that long, which is why I suggested we start putting some funds away early so we can really get ahead of that for when that needs to be replaced, rather than being caught with our pants down, essentially. Yeah, but then those efficiencies, looking at what we can do with our solar, our net metering credits and changing some of the heating, those are just things I'm gonna start analyzing. But yeah, I've started taking a look into the capital needs assessment, and as we get through the budget season here, we'll be able to see where we can start looking for those efficiencies coming in and.
Oh, no,
Okay,
I'm
yeah,
like,
perfect,
but
yeah.
what about transportation? Because we do have, people, one of the things is, and I'll be very honest with you, I've been chairman for a lot of years, and the 3 biggest meetings I've ever chaired was when we did transportation and a ski program, and I forget what the third, cell tower.
Yeah.
So it had nothing to do with education, we talk about how bad our test scores were, how great they were, and we hardly got any, but, talk about transportation and we packed the house. But we have a lot of interested people, and we think that there's a lot of, with us both having choice, one of the things to allow equity or to allow our students to have more opportunity is to make transportation more available to secondary students. Because there's a lot of families that, if there's not a bus that can get their child there, they're not gonna get their child to maybe a better opportunity for that child. And I think, the transportation is a very important thing, and we really need to jump on that too. And I know you just started, and I know it's, you've hardly gotten your feet wet. But I think for this year, this budget, we did tell voters that, trust us, we're gonna get through this budget. But next year we'll come back with a much, tighter budget, and we'll be looking at things and we'll be looking at opportunities, and one of them was transportation, and we said it's a little too early now for us to do anything, but we will bring you transportation next year, so we need to have transportation to bring to them. So, and you do have a group of people that are willing to work with you, so I'd really like to see that get moved too. The building stuff is pretty easy because all that legwork's been done. We've got the studies, we've got projections, we know what we need to do. If we need to massage things a little bit, just because it says after 20 years you should replace your furnace. If your furnace is running good and you're at 90% efficiency, I'm not all for just buying a new furnace because, the plan said to do it. But I think transportation is something that we can get a lot of bang for our buck for, and we really need to look at.
Do we have a clear direction on transportation?
No, that's why I'm asking what we want.
Oh, okay, with the board. So
Well,
we had,
and I want the transportation committee involved because that's, what we charged them with was. And they said that they needed help with that because they couldn't do it on their own. They needed
but we gave them a charge, the transportation group.
We have not met.
last
But-
year we
Yeah.
gave them a
Yeah.
charge.
That's right.
Right.
The board gave them a charge and then
Right.
right. So that's, my question is, do we have a charge for Chris
Charge!
here? Right.
Yeah.
So, and I am not actually, I don't know that we should
I want,
delegate the charge out. I mean, I think we should set some high level goal.
okay, so what does the rest of the board think?
Different goal than you set last time, which was.
I mean, could be the same.
I suggest we set it the same as you said last time and let the committee work with Chris on seeing if we can get to that. If I remember correctly, it was 10% more and 20% less. I don't remember exact numbers. I have to go back and look. but-
Yeah, but it was, right, looking at a cost.
So
Yeah.
my thought is I don't wanna just tell them numbers because I want them to come and tell us the numbers. What I want the transportation committee and Chris to do is there more bang for our buck that we can get? Is there a better way to utilize stuff? If we were to spend another $100 or another $10,000, could we just have transportation to every school that our kids wanna go to, or should we cut back?
Yeah.
I mean, I want them to come to us and tell us what we could do with our transportation.
So I would hate to send people out and then, like not have any kind of box around this and then have, we have a lot of kids going to a lot of private schools. So I would not want to send that out as like an open question as to whether or not that's what we meant,
What's that?
that we were going to bus to the private schools.
No, I'm not saying we're
Or the
busing the
independent-
private schools.
but I
I'm just
think-
saying
but-
we have the opportunity.
Right.
And I think we need to look at it.
Right.
So-
Well, so I think we need to put a box out there rather than getting people excited.
We'll make a box then. But anyways,
Carrie Katie come back to us last time and
She said
maybe
it was
I'm
too much.
mistaken. And
Too
well,
much.
she said
Yeah.
us working in a vacuum is not going to work. That
To
we
give it
needed
to-
to look at the larger picture,
But-
right? That we needed to look at how we could help within the context of the larger supervisory
Yeah.
union, and perhaps even Southern Vermont, to make our
But what do we want?
transportation more efficient and to offer more opportunities.
With also just
I
getting
think-
data.
That's what I'm saying, is
Right.
she said that working on our own in a bubble
Yeah.
was not feasible. I mean, that was,
Wasn't
I
it-
think, what she came
was
back
the
and said.
timeline also
And
difficult?
tell me if I'm misremembering.
No,
So-
I think you're right.
so how about if we do this? How about if the charges to see if there's more efficiencies and if there's more opportunities?
Working in a larger community.
I don't think I think we just ask for more efficiencies. He can go however, they can go wherever they wanna go with
Where
that.
they want to go with those efficiencies, sure.
Yeah, I mean, I don't wanna restrict it to, because maybe it's, the larger community includes public transportation.
Well, I think that's what she was telling us.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I thought she was more talking about like with West River.
I think specifically she was talking about West River, yes. But she
Yeah.
was saying that us working on ours by ourselves, we can't make it more efficient.
So Chris, is that enough of a charge, you think? Efficiency and opportunity?
I think so, and I've done some legwork already.
I
I've
know
looked
you-
at some of the options of what the cost was last fiscal year for transportation. What if we keep it in-house? What if we utilize some of the resources we have and bring everything in-house? What if we outsource everything? So I have some of those numbers, and I'm happy and willing to meet with the transportation committee and discuss some of those figures, see what they look like, and also some of these other problems that have been presented as far as being equitable to our secondary schools. I need that input from our parents and the board and know
So-
what problems we're looking to solve.
I mean, so I just want to be real clear for everybody here, like, if we come back with a proposal to bus secondary students to non-public schools, I'm gonna have a big problem with that, unless we've figured out how to do transportation for every student that doesn't go to a public school. So I really would like us to be clear about that before.
And so does everybody on the board feel the same way?
Or we could leave it wide open and then, we potentially are setting ourselves up. Maybe the board wants to look at that, but it's gonna be a big problem for me.
I think we should look at it. We have to know where our kids are going. I mean, we need to, like Mark's thing is, we need to know what the numbers are. Let that bear that out, what they're looking at, so yeah.
Rick, how do you feel?
I have no feelings on that.
Yeah, I think,
Barry?
I don't wanna, yeah, I
That's
mean,
Barry, you got any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I could agree with Dwight, and Mark, let's get ideas of what the broad spectrum is of what we're looking at, and then narrow it down from there.
I mean, we can narrow it down and say no going to Burlington.
I'm not saying that we bus all private schools, but let's get all the numbers of everything, and definitely
Switzerland.
Switzerland.
No
Yeah,
going to Switzerland either.
yeah, Sweden,
Sweden. It is Sweden.
We have some students in Dover going to Sweden.
yes.
You good?
That'd be a long bus ride.
I'm good. Yeah.
Okay, so for now, efficiency and opportunity,
Yeah.
expanded opportunity, equity, all those fancy
So
keywords.
would you like the director of operations to convene the transportation committee?
No, what I was gonna say was, if he just contacts maybe Mark, contacts the other Matt, the Matt,
Tammy.
and Tammy, and then, Matt, I was gonna ask you, the transportation committee we kinda had set up last year, that was included a West River person, the road commissioners or foremen from both towns, the bus drivers that just in Dover, and then a parent from each town,
Right.
and then board member,
And the administrators.
and then you two. So it was like a 10-man committee.
Was Carrie the parent from Dover though? There was another parent?
She was the board member.
Yeah,
Okay.
Terry was the board. So you work with Matt and Tammy, to coordinate all this. Matt and Tammy, you guys kind of have to lead it a little bit because Chris doesn't know the parents. If there's other parents that want to come, I mean, it has to be a warned open meeting. There has to be minutes because you're a subcommittee of the board, and we just so that we know what's going on. And, you know, unfortunately, again, we're like setting you up for almost for failure. We're saying, here, you got a couple months to do this or a month and a half to do this.
Yeah,
But
why don't we ask the parents to come in and tell you, like,
so,
I'd like
anyways,
to apologize in advance.
it's not that bad. Yes, it is, Laura said. We'll see. So, is that good with the board?
Yeah, will the board be notified of when the meeting?
Yes, because it has to be warned.
I know, but that's not the same as getting an email.
Okay, so, Bill, can you make sure that the warnings go out to all the board members? Yes, ma'am.
I was just curious, so was the first transportation committee different than what this one is in that those were never warned, it was
They
just
should've
us
been.
meeting
Oh, no.
together?
No, they should have been, and that's usually why we have a board member on it, to make sure.
Okay, and so maybe I was unaware, we never had anybody else show up, it was the 10 or so that
Well, you may not, I mean, we very rarely have anybody show up to our school board meetings.
Sure,
I
okay.
was a little scared when I pulled in tonight.
And when a lot of people show up, we wonder what we did
Yeah, what
wrong.
did we do wrong?
But no, they should,
What's that?
You're on the transportation.
Yes, I am.
Bill, they're supposed to be warned if they're a subcommittee of the board.
Yep.
And there are supposed to be
I
minutes.
don't think I get noticed. We didn't take notes. Yeah.
Well, you took notes because you guys told us, I mean, we had a report out, so, but yeah, there should be, I mean, they don't have to be like word for word what went on, but just a general understanding, so that there's a record of what was discussed. Sam, did you have your hand up?
I did not.
Oh, I'm sorry. I can't see that far that well.
That's who that is. I couldn't see her either.
Oh,
Yeah.
so is everybody okay with transportation, Chris? Did we? And Chris, the present I have for you is, this was given to me by a former board chair of Dover. You don't look, this is for Chris. This is a plot of the Dover School land and all the lots we bought back in the 80s. And all the lots the town was supposed to buy, but got kiboshed by a school board member who presented this to me. He's now passed on, so I thought I would pass this on to you.
Are
So,
there other copies of it?
I guess.
It looks somewhat precious.
I've held on to it for a long time.
Written on
So
parchment.
this is a present for you in case you ever want to see all the land that Dover owns.
Frame it and put it right over your
Now,
desk.
River Valley.
Frame this.
Yes.
Thank you, buddy.
Less contentious.
Okay, last thing that I missed earlier, thank you, Marco. Okay, so, Mark was also an auditor for the district, and I don't believe you can be an auditor and also on the board, because you're kinda auditing yourself, which kinda sounds not good.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, so Mark has written to myself as the board chair, in order to avoid any conflicts due to my appointment to the RVUSD board, I hereby resign the position of district auditor effective immediately. Thank you, Mark. So, Bill, we need to get a new auditor, and those are just that large. I mean, it doesn't matter what town you're from. So can we just, I wouldn't put like an ad in the paper, but
Is that up to us?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, because he's a school auditor.
school
Okay.
auditor, not town auditor. So we should, if there's anybody that has any interest, maybe you can maybe Matt and Tammy can just let people know, and, you know, maybe there's somebody sitting in the back that would be interested.
All right.
I don't know, there's only one that really can do it.
Yeah, that's right.
He's like one that get, one person in public.
entails, but I'm sure.
Oh, you have to have 10 fingers or 10
Yes,
fingers to
10
close
fingers.
You
it.
said, you're sure you can, right?
So anyways, are you good with that, Bill?
Yep. I got it.
So the next meeting is the Wyndham Central, you guys will go there. And then we've got, yes?
The last bullet under new business.
Oh, did I miss something? I'm sorry.
Correspondence,
No, clerk.
executive session.
New clerk.
For the board? What
Appointment.
Oh, I have the wrong,
are you looking
I
at?
don't have it on my agenda, I'm sorry.
I don't have it.
So Carrie was the clerk of the board, so we need a new clerk. So if somebody would make a motion to appoint somebody as clerk, you can't be Rick or I.
Cannot be Rick.
What's the
It's
clerk?
gotta be somebody that's accessible, right?
No,
Yeah,
it's just you
have
get
to
served.
receive official correspondence.
When we get sued, they serve you.
You take minutes
Oh.
if the minute taker's not here.
Your house is hard.
Is anybody willing to do
Okay,
it?
he just said he'll do it.
I'll do that.
Dwight,
Yeah.
Okay,
move.
somebody needs to make a motion.
I move it.
Laura moves, Barry seconds it, so he doesn't get it. And that's why Laura made the motion. Yeah. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed besides Dwight? Okay,
Thank you, Dwight.
Thank you.
Appreciate
so
your service.
November 18th, 6:30 at Dover School. Rick will send you the budget, an agenda.
It'll be a
again,
budget
and
heavy
we'll-
meeting.
I think a lot of budget. Next one, we'll send you out an agenda to approve again.
It's a
like,
lot of years of.
beforehand, but I don't think we need to
different
meet
looking
to discuss it again until we get the more, the meeting stuff.
We wanna leave the meetings at 6:30?
Uh.
You had talked about that
Yeah,
prior.
yeah, do we wanna still meet at 6:30? Folks, does that still work for
I
everybody?
like
It's
6:30
fine,
personally.
yeah.
But
I had to turn around and get gas, sorry.
Did you get it from my gas station?
No, I had to go quite a ways.
Are you old?
Yeah.
signed up for this gas station
Yeah,
today.
get your card and you get
I got
10
it.
cents a gallon off.
Signed up today.
Okay, so we're gonna leave it at 6:30? You're okay with
Fine with
6:30?
me, yeah.
I
Okay,
have a question.
Yep.
Just to get on the harp. So with transportation, we just had that big, is that
and they
for-
left.
Right, and then they left. So this is for this budget?
So if we can, if they can do something, because we kinda said that we would look into it. I think we at least owe the people give it the old college try and see if we can do it. I don't know what the old college try is, because they kicked me out, but. Anybody, anything else? Because if not, I'm gonna talk to you before I walk out the door.
Who?
Sam,
He's looking over your shoulder.
I'm looking over your shoulder.
Me.
I'm looking through you. Executives, I need a motion going to executive session for a contractual issue, and we'll bail out and go next door, but there won't be any decisions made, so you guys can bail if you want. And somebody, Peter, will send you, and I don't think we see you
Oh,
again now
We
for a
need-
month,
You need your
right?
rulers,
Yeah, I'm gonna go abroad.
Right, so have a good trip and be safe.
Mark.
Oh, hey, guys, did anybody look at the numbers while I was there?
Numbers.
Right there, the file, I passed it over there.
No, I reviewed the entire package.
You did?
Most of it.
What am I supposed to do with it? Sign something?
Can I have somebody make a motion on executive session? Okay, Laura moved and Mark seconded. All those in favor say aye. At 8:08, I guess, or whatever.
What are you talking about?
Yes, Rick.
Yeah.
Okay.
Life is good.
So is it, there's no way?